Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Zero to Here podcast. I am your host, Denny Dumas, producer Carl. Hey, Carl. We have the noise canceling mics now. We can't hear you. Good. He said hello. This is going to be, it's going to be something. We're doing a little real estate update podcast tonight with the Garbutt Dumas real estate team. No bias at all, but I think this is one of the best teams in Greater Vancouver.
Yep.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Adam Senuik.
It is going quite all right.
Monica Harmse.
Always good to be with you.
Okay, that's enough, Adam.
Done.
It's good.
Lucas McCann.
Amazing. Yes.
And last but not least, Shawn Kambo.
Fantastic.
Are we missing someone?
I was super enthusiastic, guys. Thanks for coming out. This is going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of this podcast is just to provide everyone with a little bit of insider info of what's going on in the real estate market right now in Greater Vancouver. It's been a bit of a roller coaster in the last year or two, and we just kind of want to share with you what we are seeing right now and maybe some predictions for what to expect later in 2019. This is definitely not going to be a stats show where we throw out sales ratios and exciting numbers like that, although we do have those numbers, and if you are interested in them, please email us. It's just not that exciting to talk about on a podcast. Really, we're just going to give you some info on like how we're feeling, what we're seeing, what buyers are saying as they're coming through open houses, stuff like that. Who wants to start off? What are we seeing right now, guys? What's early 2019 looking like?
We're seeing a lot. We're seeing gradually increasing activity in terms of people coming out, but we haven't really seen a significant increase in sales activity. So we are seeing buyers who are looking, they're shopping, they're coming out, but we haven't seen a lot of them translating that into pulling the trigger and writing offers and sales actually happening. So there's some reason to believe that things will pick up as interest seems to be going, but we're still waiting for that tipping point for activity to really start rolling.
Let's maybe give a little bit of background info to anyone who hasn't necessarily been paying attention to the Greater Vancouver real estate market. 2016, 2017 were insanity. 2016 I call the year of the house. 2017 was the year of the condo. And it seemed like every week was a new record sale in the neighborhood. It seemed like every listing that was priced appropriately was getting 3, 5, 10 offers, and most properties were selling subject free. 2016 was all about houses, and it seemed like every month was better than the last. And although we had a record sale in March, it seemed like that was unattainable again, and April beat it, and May beat that, and June beat that. And 2017, it kind of switched over into condos. The houses had climbed so much in value that the gap was too big, and condos kind of followed along in 2017. And the last, let's say, 9 months-ish, it has slowed down quite a bit. We've seen activity slow down a lot. We've seen market values of homes come off 15 to 20% depending on neighborhoods. We've seen market value of condos come off 5 to 10%. Who wants to talk a little bit about the fall? The fall was a weird period.
Go for it, Shawn.
Fantastic. Thanks for throwing me out there. The fall was an interesting time. I find that, or at least I found that most of my sales happened at the end of the summer. Once we hit fall, I started to see everything kind of slow down a bit. Same thing with November. December, was fairly active compared to the other years. And then once we hit once we hit January, it was crickets. I mean, nobody was really out there. Anybody that did come through, they were just kind of peering through the windows, seeing what was out for sale. And they just wanted to see where the market was going. So, I mean, we had a few tips from mortgage brokers saying that the rates were going to come down. And just as of about 2 weeks ago, we noticed that the rates were staying fairly the same. Some have come down if you're looking at fixed, but it still seems to be the same as it was back in December. People are just still out there just kind of looking.
Where did the slowdown come from? What's caused the slowdown in the last year or so?
That's a really good question. Here's the thing. 2016, it started to slow down because of the tax that was included, the foreign buyers tax. We started to see a little bit of a disruption in the market, but
that was a pretty quick hiccup though.
It was.
I think government people who make these legislations, I think they thought it was going to hurt a lot more than it did. And it seemed like it was like a 3 to 6 month slow period where values went down overnight in the summer when they announced it. For single family homes, really, condos were basically unaffected. The tax that we're talking about right now, if you are unaware, is the foreign buyer tax that came in end of July 2017. 2016. Yeah,
around the summertime. I think it was around July, mid-August was when it came out.
That was a pretty significant tax. It was basically, they announced it 3 days before it came into effect, and it was a 15% tax on property value for anyone that was not a Canadian resident, which is, the way they brought it out was ridiculous. But I didn't see it hurt too much. It was like a really quick turnaround.
True. And I agree with you on that point. I think it's kind of, for lack of better words, I think it's a bit foolish to say that a 15% tax for foreign buyers is really going to disrupt the market. I mean, we're talking about people who are buying $4+ million homes. So 15% to them, not really that significant. But what I think it was almost a market indicator for showing that, the economy, politics and stuff like that were going to be affecting the market soon. So, I mean, even though it was 15%, you're right, it was just a minor hiccup. But over time, that's when we started to see a huge difference, is people started to lose confidence in the political and the economic system.
So you're saying it was a foreshadowing of what was to come.
That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then that's what we're starting to see now as well, is if you're looking at our economies, I mean, the stock markets came down quite a bit. Our interest rates came up. We also had the speculation taxes. And I think that's what's kind of carrying on to this year, is, as we talked about it in our previous realtor meetings, people's buying power went down by 20%. So, I mean, now people are just like, well, if we can afford 20% less than we did before, and there's some talk about interest rates and even the not the speculation tax, but the stress test going away, maybe we should hold on. But then what people need to realize is properties are sitting right now. Why not take advantage of the uncertainty in the market and try to get those lowball offers in?
I think when the stress test was announced, what was it, fall of 2017, there was a big buyer pool who had been pre-approved or had like rate holds that weren't affected by the stress test. They just had to complete by February or whatever the rule was. And so it's interesting to look back now and see how active the first 3 or 4 months of 2018 were. And it seemed like as soon as April hit, when all that pool of people who weren't affected by the stress test had bought or had their pre-approvals had run out, it was just like a steady decline for the next like 9 months. I think it was just a combination of everything. I think, interest rates have gone up, let's say 1.5% in the last 18 months-ish. Stress test came in, which hurt buying power a lot. Foreign buyer tax was a year before. And now this crazy bullshit that the NDP's throwing at us with speculation tax and vacancy taxes, that they really had a great plan coming into this.
And on top of that too, you get the just publicity and media out there, and then you start getting groupthink as well, where just a lot of people who are in the market talking amongst each other all start saying similar things about they're not sure about what's happening. They think it's slowing down, and then without really diving into looking into any hard facts on what they're dealing with, it's just talk amongst other people and them all coming to their own decisions that this just isn't the right time, and a lot of people just deciding to sit out and wait on the sidelines.
How much do you think media influence affects buyer perception?
I think it's probably a ton, because realistically, like, real estate education is not accessible, nor is it out there and available for people. So media really is the way that people are educated. They might know a realtor that they can ask some questions to, but they might also not have full trust in that person because they think it's their job to sell them. Whereas I think they might see the media as more of an unbiased opinion and might hold that to a little more truth, which isn't necessarily true. But yeah, I think it does have a big influence. And then also just people talking to each other. That, not to say that they're wrong for not being educated on it, but they aren't educated on it, and they're talking to each other and coming to their own conclusions. Where in reality, when you're talking about the fall, like that was a great time to buy. There's a lot of people who did get a lot of really good buys in that window. I think that window of that kind of prime time buying has passed a bit, but a lot of people are still sitting off saying, yeah, I'm just waiting for a really good deal. I want a really good deal. And it's like, okay, well, you can wait your whole life, but there are deals to be had at any time. It's about what's finding out there.
Do you think, though, what
Do you
you're
agree
saying?
with media influence?
No.
Okay, let's hear what your point of view is.
I feel the media influence is there, but a certain demographic.
Mm-hmm.
I think the younger demographic is primed and ready to make the attack now. And that really comes into the relationship with the real estate agent.
Hashtag prime and ready.
Hashtag realtor life. If you're good, like we are, G&D. But anyways, I find that the media is there and making an influence on a demographic that's like 50 years and older.
I totally agree that it has a stronger influence on the older demographic, but also the reality of the demographic that is making transactions right now. More of it is the older demographic than the younger. So I think they have a bit more.
The problem that you run in there is that the older demographic influences the younger demographic. So if their kids are buying and they're the ones that are hearing these hard facts, then they're telling their children one thing. And 30-year-olds very rarely make a purchase without consulting their parents. You know, I would say that's the age group that's being affected the most by the stress test and by the interest rates. And they usually don't make a big purchase like that without mom or dad knowing about it. And if they're the ones that are hearing the gloom and doom of the market, they're passing that down to their kids. So I haven't been into one meeting in the last 9 months where one of the first 3 questions isn't what's really going on with the market, because they don't know and they don't have access to the hard facts, and they haven't been educated even in the last 3 years leading up to their first purchase to even really know what to do to prepare themselves. So it's a lot of different things that have caused the problem, but education, public education, should be everyone's biggest concern.
If only we had Instagram and Facebook to talk about this.
Speaking of, what the hell?
I don't know.
I had so many good stories to post today.
Oh, I was on fire
Oh,
today.
sure you
Today
were,
I was
Lucas.
So handcuffed.
You should see what I have lined up right now.
Same. I was like, I had so much good stories.
Instagram is going to be so flooded the minute it turns back on. Lucas is going to have 38 stories by himself.
It's going to be raining tomorrow, but he's going to have all these like sunny pictures on his stories.
Shh, don't give away my secrets.
I want to bring up a point about the media, though. It seems like in Greater Vancouver, there's been this bubble that is ready to burst for 25 years. So when you look at public perception of real estate in general, do they really care about the media, what the media is saying? The media has been negative on real estate in Greater Vancouver forever, as long as I've been alive.
Yeah, that's why people always ask you what's really going on, because they don't trust the media.
Lucas?
Adam?
What else are they hearing? Like what else are they hearing other than the media?
So you're saying, where do they go for information?
Yeah, like what other info are they getting? Like they might take it, they might not fully believe it, but it's still the only thing being put in their face. So they're not getting other ideas in front of them. Like it might not be, they might hear whatever the media is saying and being like, okay, I don't fully agree with that, but there's probably a bit of it that they are attaching onto, and they're not getting the contrasting thought put in front of them for them to have anything to really strongly feel otherwise.
Like, for example, when the foreign buyer tax came in, the media was like, this is it. This is the bubble. It's over for Greater Vancouver. And literally 6 months later, it was busier than it was that summer. So I don't know how much I believe in what the media has to say, but where do people go for information if we can't rely on publications like newspapers and stuff like that?
You're local.
But to who? To where?
I think that's, I hope I'm using this term correctly, I think that's a loaded question, because when you look at the news, they give you a lot of stats and people find, okay, well, you have stats to back up your story. I think what people need to understand is that stats are biased. right? So, I mean, we could be looking at the two different sides of the same coin. So, I mean, it's a good idea to talk to, real estate teams that are actually performing in the market, maybe such as our team, for example. I mean, we did over 115 deals last year, and it was a slower market than the year before, where we did 160. So, I mean, we have our finger on the pulse. We know what's happening in the neighborhood, who wants to list, who's selling, the motivations behind all of this, right? So I think when people listen to the news, I think they should take it with a grain of salt. I think there's more research that needs to be done. I mean, you could take a look at immigration rates. How does it affect housing in Vancouver, right? If you look at that, you're going to start to see that developers are starting to go from condos to rental buildings. Well, why are they going to rental buildings? Well, because now there's government incentives for rental buildings. So if a rental building has incentives to build them, and they also have incentives for developers, that means developers are getting paid for rental buildings, which means that densification is huge, which also means, I know I'm going to ramble on here, so sorry, give me one sec. So, which means if densification is huge, that means there's a few different types of properties that builders are going to buy out. They're going to either buy out older homes and assemble land, they're going to buy out older multifamilies and redevelop those into greater, bigger buildings, or they're going to go after forested areas like West Group did on the River District. So, I mean, there's still demand for land, whether it's shifting to a rental market, whether it's shifting towards more rentals that need to be out there. I mean, there is real estate happening out there, real estate sales, but I guess market segments are shifting. So, I mean, like you mentioned before, Denny, 2016 was the year of the house. Now, all of a sudden, 2017 was the year of the apartments. 2018, 2019 might be the year of buying rental buildings. Right. So I think to go back to the original question, does media influence the way that people think about the real estate market? I think in short, yes. Where should they go for real estate information? Like actual real estate information? Talk to a realtor. I mean, they're the ones that are actually buying and selling homes. That's their lifeline. That's their jobs. They have to have information and knowledge on that market. So I think if they want the real news and unbiased stats, talk to realtors. I mean, you're going to have biased stats in the news. They need to create stories.
We have a lot of buyers on the go right now. It seems like the most common questions for buyers right now are price is going to keep going down, and I'm only going to buy if I get a deal. How do you address those comments when you hear those from buyers?
Lucas?
Monica?
I get that question every single time I meet with a new buyer,
Exactly.
every single time. And I tell them that there are two types of sellers right now. Sellers that know the value of their home and they refuse to sell it for less. And then sellers that have to sell and have to take less. So yes, there are deals out there, but they're not crazy like they heard of maybe last year. Maybe homeowners that were trying to sell last year ditched their properties really quickly because they had to, and because this market shift wasn't fully expected to be as substantial as it really happened to be. But now the feeling is that if we wait, we'll get the price that we're looking for. They've seen that their neighbors have sold for a certain price and they're not willing to sell for less than what their neighbors sold. So yes, there's deals to be made when buyers are asking, but it's not going to be, yes, if a detached home went from 1.8 to 1.5 last year and they, sold it for 300,000 under, you're not going to get that deal in a townhouse or a condo. You're going to get 5,000-10,000 off if it's been on the market a long time, if it's not move-in ready, and if it's not in a desirable area. But there's so many other factors that go into getting a deal. So if a deal to a buyer is getting it way under what they're asking, then yeah, you can get a deal. But I've seen a home in Surrey that priced it for $799,000 and went for over a million because the realtors are laughing at everybody thinking there's going to be a deal. So they put it at a price that they think that everyone's going to be looking, and then they entice everyone into a bidding war anyway. And it went for over $1 million. This just happened, right? So yeah, that property went for $200,000 over asking in this hilarious market. It just depends on what you're looking at. And if your real estate professional that's sending you to go look at homes is telling you, yes, that home is priced fairly. No, that home is way overpriced. So it depends on the price. Shawn can't wait to talk. What are you
Yeah, no, I'm jumping out of my seat to get this.
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome that you mentioned that. And I definitely agree with you. There's there still is a chance to get a deal, but in order to get a deal in this market, you have to actually write offers, right? So, I mean, if you're sitting on the sidelines waiting for the prices to come down, why not just write that lowball offer and see what happens? I mean, for example, in the Southlands near UBC, there was a house that was listed over 3.3 million. It sold for 2.3. So, I mean, you're getting deals like almost 500,000 less than what the asking price is. So, I mean, if you're looking for a deal, now's the market to get in there and get a deal. Start writing the offers. Don't just sit on the sidelines. Don't wait for the market to do you a favor. You got to go out there and find it.
That was the most logical, good idea that I've heard in a long time. If you want to get a deal, you got to write it out.
So true. And like the fact behind that, I have 3 buyers that's this probably within the last 5 months that we wrote an offer. I'm preparing this offer, and I'd say 90% certainty in my mind, I'm like, this will not come together. One was a 100K gap, like below listing, 75K, and another one was another 100K. Each one of them, I was preparing the offer. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's go on this. Let's see what happens. Did all the background work I could do, but had no hopes of it actually going through. And they did. So that like totally goes to show what Shawn says. Like, if you want the deal, then go for it. Don't wait for it. Because it's not going to come to you. That's for sure.
I just told a buyer that like an hour ago. Like, if you want it, I'll go home right now and write the offer for whatever you want to put down on it.
Yeah. And you build the story that you send it to the realtor, you have it send it to their seller, and you give them the evidence. You do your end of it, and you see how it goes. And you don't always know the circumstance that the seller's in. One of them, it happened to be a seller who doesn't live in this country, and they're out of touch with the market. They were grossly overpriced. They weren't getting any attention. Now they have an offer in front of them, and they're like, yeah, sure, let's make it happen. Another one, they needed to sell because they had their other place lined up, and they had to get out of this to not carry 2 mortgages. And it's just stuff that you don't always know going in. So you might as well, do something. Something might happen. Wait for something. Nothing's going to happen.
Well, you wait for something. What's going to happen is going to be back into the spring market and multiple offer situations again.
Right around the corner.
It's hard to tell buyers that, though, because
I get that.
They think that the realtors just want them to buy sometimes, and they don't understand that we actually just really want to help them.
Well, hopefully they understand that. I mean, that's what you're trying to build with them, right? Yeah. But it's true. If you're writing an offer, even if it is way below, there is actually an opportunity to have that relationship with the other party. Because odds are they're going to come back and negotiate. And if they only come down a couple $1,000s, then we know where they stand. But if they, at least at the end of the day, they're probably going to come back with something. Very rare right now, even if you go really low, that they're just going to ignore it altogether. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I'm starting to see right now.
Yep.
If you like something, write an offer, let's see where we're at, and go from there.
Yep.
I think it's important to note that realtors are not magicians, and we don't have crystal balls. Carl is a magician.
For yourself, Denny.
But Carl is not a realtor. I don't think
magicians have crystal balls. Psychics do.
Yeah, but Carl could probably pull some fucking curse together and get people down on their price just because he's a magician. Anyway, same shit, okay? It's magic.
Thanks.
Anyways, we are not magicians. We don't have crystal balls. We don't know what the future is going to hold. We base our knowledge off of the history, right? Off of what has happened in the past, off of what is sold in the neighborhood. And if something sold a month ago for $1 million and we can get you a property for $925 or $950 that is similar, that's a pretty good deal. In 6 months from now, is that property going to be worth $900 or 1.2? I don't know. We're basing our knowledge off of what has happened, right? Of course, we have predictions based on feelings, based on what we're seeing happening, based on how many people are coming through open houses and what they're saying. But it's educated guesses, right? If someone tells you to wait 6 more months because the market's falling, I think you need to run away from that.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you're just reacting to the market. That's the biggest thing, right? That's what I tell people. We're not a psychic. We are literally reacting to what is going on because we do have our ear to the ground and are on the pulse of what is actually going to happen. But we have no clue what 6 months is going to bring to us, other than it's spring market, and obviously trends tell you. what's
exactly
possibly going to happen.
Exactly.
And that's what we're leaning on.
Often this time of year is when it's still a touch slow and people are hesitant. But if you look at the last 10 years, the busiest 3 months of the year are April, May, June.
Yep.
In terms of market climb, in terms of number of inventory, in terms of number of buyers out there. So if people are saying, well, I'm going to wait a few months and see what happens, usually this is when market picks up. So if agents sound a bit more aggressive in terms of like, this is a really good property with a good price tag, you should probably write an offer on it. It's because we know what is around the corner based on what has happened in the last 10 years. And I think it's happening again. Just have a little inclination.
Why don't you talk about that?
We'll get to that.
Okay. Is it called insider information?
Yeah, 100% it is.
Oh,
It's top secret.
stay tuned, people.
Break. No. This is where our sponsorships come in. We have ads playing, Steel and Oak beer. We paid full retail for this. No, all right. Let's switch over to the seller side. What are sellers saying right now?
I got a really good text today.
Let's hear it.
Just
Don't name
real
the
estate
name.
only.
Yeah, no names, no addresses, but let this client of mine know when
Talking to the mic.
let this client of mine know when the our open house is going to be for this weekend. And his text was, "It would be nice to have some serious buyers come through for a change. Thanks for the update."
Same.
Yeah. So
Okay, back to my magician point. Again, like our goal with any listing is to market the shit out of it, get it in front of as many eyes as possible. Obviously MLS, obviously professional photos, but like other things online, social media ads, emails to local agents. I would love to walk into a listing and be like, I have the exact buyer for you. He's going to give you $150,000 over what you want. He just loves this property. It doesn't exist, right? We're not magicians. We are a marketing company that sells real estate. Anyway, I just want to make sure that we are not magicians, okay? I would love to get you a 2016 sale price for your house today. It does not exist. It's like trying to sell a stock. Let's say you bought Bitcoin 10 years ago for like 30 cents or whatever it was. A year ago it was worth what? 15 to 20,000. Now it's worth 4. What is it? 3,000? Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. You can't sell your Bitcoin for 20,000 right now, people. Just like we are unlikely going to sell your home for a 2016 value. It's a market like any other. It goes up and down. Anyway, so what are the responses to sellers looking like right now? Obviously, people have, let's say their neighbor sold a year ago in a condo building and they got a sweet number and they want that number. And so they're disappointed that people aren't coming to open houses. They're disappointed that they haven't seen a great offer yet.
I try to always like go back to what they bought their house for
Perspective.
and when they bought it. What did you pay for your house and when did you buy it? Okay, so you paid, let's say it's a detached home, for example, and they've lived in it for 20 years, which a lot of downsizers do. They've probably spent, depending on what area, I'll speak for the Tri-Cities where I do a lot of detached listings last year, and most people bought for under 100,000, but they were miffed if they could not sell it for over $1 million. So those conversations were really difficult.
Define myth.
Just blown away.
Okay.
Just absolutely blown away that when I would go and tell them how much their home was worth at that day, today your home is worth maybe $899,000. But their neighbor down the street, who they've known for 20 years, he sold it for $1.1 million. And my house is way better than theirs. I repainted my driveway. Look at this cool thing I made that helps the hose work really well, and yeah, those conversations were all about
grass.
All about
Perfectly manicured.
all about perspective, when it comes to sell. And also, where are you going? If you're selling in this market, that means you're buying in this market. So if you're selling today, you're buying today. You're not buying. If you sold for 1.1 million in 2016, you had to buy in 2016. What were you buying? Did you have to do a bidding war? Now you get to go under, so just hello. Just perspective. And likely you're ending it up with the exact same amount in the bank that the guy next door sold for 1.1 million, bought a condo. He ended up with maybe 500,000 in the bank. You can do the exact same thing today and also end up with 500,000 just with a different sale price.
How are you explaining that to people?
Just like that. Just like that. You guys know me. I'm a straight shooter. I just put the papers in front of them, show them the numbers, and then show them the 500 on each side and circle it really big on both sides. And then I push it towards them and then let them stare at the paper till it makes sense.
In silence?
In silence.
She doesn't even say anything throughout the whole time. She's just writing down numbers, circling 500. There you go.
Were they still miffed?
Actually, no. Once you can penetrate their minds and get the sale price, because the sale price actually does not matter. It's what you're buying that matters. If you have a good realtor that can help you buy a home for a good value and help you set yourself up financially with the amount that you need in the end, because it's always the amount that you need in the end. It's not the amount that you have in the beginning. If you're selling for 1 million or you're selling for 800,000, it doesn't matter. It's what you're buying and what ends up in the bank in the end. The sale price doesn't matter.
Those are two things that I always bring up. One, perception. Sure, maybe your house was worth 10% more a year ago, but look at 2015 value. If you sold before this crazy rush, you were selling for 60% less than what it is now. So just, again, back to markets. It's a market like any other. It's a stock market like any other. It goes up and down. Can you time it perfectly? No. Very rarely do people time it perfectly. We had a couple in the spring of 2017 that like sold and then waited a couple months and bought, and it worked out really well. But you don't know that until you look back at history. And I completely agree with Monica in terms of like, if you're buying and selling in the same market, it's a wash. It's if you're downsizing, maybe it is you're a touch over right now because houses have maybe gone down a little bit more than strata properties, but it's a wash. I agree.
It's so simple.
Who else has had conversations with sellers, and how are they going? Carl's upset at me. I dropped my pen.
I've found that at least what's made some of those conversations easier is a lot of like condo listings. We're starting to get just a lot of inventory in the building. 7-8 listings up in a building, and they're not moving either. So that's at least giving some backing to letting them know, and just giving them weekly or bi-weekly market updates on what's been selling, what's active, just what's been going on in their area. And when they see that 40 comparable listings in a very small radius around them are active, and since January 1st there have been 4 sales out of that type of property, it really opens their eyes to, oh, okay, like he's not just not doing his job, it's just the way it's going right now. And then when they see a bunch of listings up in their building and they're not moving either, it at least gives us some backing to just let them know that it's not us not doing our job. It's just the timing of the market right now, and just trying to let them know that the trends that we were talking about before, and just the evidence and the facts that we've seen before about the spring market typically brings more activity. So letting them know that it's just a weird spot we're in right now, giving them the facts so they can see a bigger picture rather than just our words. And then just keeping them believing to keep going for another couple months and hopefully enter a strong market, and things should hopefully start going then. But
go ahead.
I've lost my train of thought, but I was going to say is that I feel like it's more of the markets have shifted in the fact that there's a condo market, townhouse market, detached market, and it also comes down to the motivation of their sellers. Where is it that they're going? Mm-hmm. Are they buying first, buying second? Are they buying it all after the fact, or renting? Mm-hmm. And these are kind of shifting the markets a little bit on my end, where if they are buying right away after they sell, they're being very realistic with the values. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're giving them a bottom end and a top end to sell now, and maybe we can try here and see in a couple of weeks, we can reevaluate where we're at. And if we're going somewhere in the middle, for some reason, I'm finding those ones are selling ASAP if it's the right product. If it's a product that's move-in ready, nobody has to do anything, they're good to just come on in and great, you've got a great value. Now, like Monica's saying, we can shift right away into buying something at a great value.
When you said in the middle, you mean in between?
Well, just say, for example, properties, you give them bottom end of 400,000 or top end of 450, but then you're going in at like 425 and they're selling at 430. Mm-hmm. But if you went at 440, or say you went in at 450, mm-hmm. it just sits there for a couple of weeks. And then you're having that conversation. Maybe we should reduce, think about our motivation. We need to buy. You don't want to get into that market. If we do, we maybe have to pay more. So, I mean, I've been finding that, whereas others who are thinking of, let's go in at a higher value because I'm just going to be renting later, then you can afford more time, right? Does that make sense?
Is now a good time to sell?
If you're realistic, yes.
That's one of the first questions people always ask, right?
Yeah, if you're buying, yeah.
Yeah. Depends on what your goal is.
So if you're buying, how are you expressing that, yes, it is a good time to sell?
Well, it depends on what they're looking for. It depends on what they told their mortgage broker they could get for their home before they got approved. You know, it depends on I love it when Shawn has something to say. He moves the mic away from Lucas to himself. And I feel like a clock is ticking. I have 10 seconds to get out what I want to say.
Take your time. Take your time.
Yeah. Anyway, it just depends, right? There's a lot more factors than what you hear in the media. There's a lot more factors. So yes, if you saw a house that has been listed since November and it was listed for a price and then it went down 100,000 and then went down 50 more thousand and it went down 20 more thousand, is it a good time to sell? Yes, if it means you can get that house, of course it's a great time to sell. Is it a good time to sell if you're downsizing, like Denny brought up earlier? Are you retiring? Is this your nest egg that you were counting on? Maybe it could not be a good time to sell. You have to be smart. You can't just be impulsive. It's a business. Selling is a business decision. It's not just, it's always a business decision. You have to think of it. You wouldn't sell your car, if everyone was driving a Kia and you had a Kia and they all just bought Kias on the block, you wouldn't try to sell your Kia to your neighbor. He already has a Kia, right? Like you just have to wait until everyone crashes their Kias and they really want a new Kia and then you sell yours, right?
Or like Japanese whiskey when they stop making it.
Yeah.
Are we sponsored by Kia?
We will be after this podcast.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
So what you're saying though, if I really think about it, is that right now is a perfect time as a seller to sell if you're going to go from a condo to a townhouse to a house.
Yes.
It's the perfect opportunity. Does that make sense?
I think it's a great time to upsize right now. And I think specifically upsizing, there's going to be a lot of inventory in the next few months. So if you're selling in the next 30 days, let's say, you're going to have such a big supply of what to buy. And I don't think it's going to be super competitive because the inventory is going to be high, that you're going to be in a really good buying position, knowing exactly what you have to then be picky and buy. Go ahead.
Turn,
I know, I'm just playing with you. I agree with you, Denny, but just to add on to what you said there, I think it's a great time to sell if you're willing to list your house accordingly. You can't just throw 2016 price tag on your house thinking, oh yeah, okay, when I get that extra 500,000 on my house or condo or whatever it is, that'll be great because I can take advantage of the low prices. Well, if it's a low price market, you're probably going to get a low price sale, but that also means, buying something else isn't as bad as it would be if you're buying something in 2016 where you had to go into multiple offers. Just to answer your previous question, you have to ask the sellers, why do you need to buy something else, right? And I think that's where people get caught up because some buyers want to buy because they need an investment opportunity. Some people want to buy because they need to upsize their houses. And sometimes people want to do both. And I think that's where people are getting confused because, now they're jumping around from condos because you can also rent condos out. You can also rent homes out. So I think what it is you really need to understand what it is you're looking to buy and why you need to buy it. And then you can say, okay, now's a good time to sell or not a good time to sell.
Let's say someone is upsizing or thinking of upsizing right now, and they're saying, how do I manage this transition? Am I buying first, selling first? How do I go about this? What are the advice points that we're giving them?
I would first say talk to your mortgage broker, like we just mentioned a few seconds ago, because your purchasing power, if you would have talked to a mortgage broker last year, was probably 20% more than it is now. So, I mean, really talk to your mortgage brokers to understand what you have to play with in terms of funds.
Let's say someone is approved. Let's say they have a $600,000 condo and they want to buy a $1.1 million house. Are they buying first or are they selling first?
If it were last year, we'd say sell your place first, we'd say buy another place and then sell your home because we knew for sure it would sell. In this market, I would definitely recommend selling your home first because it might take up to maybe 2 or 3 months before you sell. And that's just if you get an accepted offer. And then on top of that, you need about 2 months for completing, which means you could be up to 5 months before you actually get a solid sale. So it gives you enough time to find another place. Whereas if you buy a place and then you need to complete on it within 2 months, you're going to be having to pay almost who knows how much more for 3 months.
How are you guys handling that objection?
I mean, buying first right now is not the safest unless you're going to be realistic about your listing price, and not just realistic, aggressive. Being realistic, yes, but also be aggressive to where there's no chance that you won't sell it. But in this market right now, you do have to sell. If you have to sell in order to buy something, then you should sell before you buy something. That's just perfect, makes perfect sense. But also, people that are pricing it aggressively right now are still selling and they're still buying and everything is fine. There's not been any problems there. Even a subject to sale or a long close can all go through nice and smooth if you're pricing it well. Adam? Yeah? Good on that? Yep. Adam agrees with me.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. You said a term in there that I haven't heard for a few years.
Subject to sale?
Yeah. What does that mean?
What?
I don't know. Does it mean you... Right. Is it like... Is it a subject like
It's
in
back,
school?
baby.
Like social
back.
studies? Like math?
I had
sale
this,
is a subject?
I had this listing realtor today call me just before I got here, and he was like, hey, are your clients still interested in this place? If they are, my sellers are open to a subject to sale. So then I called Denny and I was like, Denny, what's a subject to sale? and then he told me it's when somebody, it's when a mommy and a daddy, there's the mommy house and a daddy house get together and they have a baby house. And I was like, oh, subject to sale, right?
I'm way more confused than
Our podcast listeners.
Birds and the bees, guys. Birds and the bees.
Yeah.
It's just you have to sell your house or else the deal doesn't complete.
But I think what you're getting at is that right now we're nervous for you to be buying first.
Right.
Yeah. Let's be honest, at the end of the day.
But are subject to sales happening? Because a lot
Yes,
of people are asking that.
100%. I just did one.
Are they like successfully completing?
And I've successfully completed it.
I was
only because I've prepared my sellers for the worst case scenario, but we went ahead with a little bit better scenario.
Accept the subject to sale, or were you writing a subject to sale offer?
We wrote a subject.
Oh, okay. So we bought
a property subject to sale, and then we had to sell the property, but be realistic within the realms of what we had, and there you go, baby sale.
There you go. See, you got my joke, Lucas. Lucas is the only one that gets me on this team.
If anyone understood that joke that's listening, please send me a message and explain it to me.
Yeah. No comment.
Okay, what? So from the buyer side, yes, they're available. I would say based on situation, based on what product you're looking at, how long it's been on the market, is it priced competitively or not? But from the seller side, let's say you've got a listing that's been on the market for 30 days. You haven't seen an offer. It's been fairly slow. You get an offer subject to sale. How are you presenting that to sellers? Because I find most sellers, first of all, don't understand what a subject to sale means for them. But second of all, are very hesitant to work with them.
True. But there's no offers coming.
I think it's going to depend on how it's presented to you. If they already have if the person who's trying to buy from you already has that property up for sale and it's priced well, it's priced competitively, then you can look at that and be like, hey, they've already got it up, it's already active, they're getting action, it's priced well. I can't guarantee that this is going to sell, but this is at least, for being in the world of subject to sale, this is a strong subject to sale situation. Whereas if they come in, they haven't listed the place yet, they haven't taken pictures, they're not telling you a listing price, you don't know what kind of property it is, then you just let them know what their options are and then what the risk they run with getting it, and just try to protect them the best they can to give them as many options as you can. But it is gonna, there are different types of subject to sales you can get in front of you, and it's really about deciphering the strength of that subject to sale, explaining that to your seller in a way that they can understand, and just giving them the options.
There's other, I just want to add on to what Adam had expressed there, and he did a really good job of it as well.
You can tell him he did a shitty job if he did a shitty job.
I think he did fantastic.
Thanks, Shawn. I need the support.
Yeah, no, you got it in me, bud. But no, just to add on to what Adam had so well put forward there.
Thanks.
We already know you agree with his answer. Let's just go.
We are. Come to our seminar. There's a plug right there. But it's one thing to keep in mind that subject to sales usually have terms in them that state that if there is a better offer that comes through, that the other offer that had the subject to sale has 24 or 48 hours to remove that subject, which means exactly.
Okay.
Does it need to be better?
No, not necessarily. So they can be written in so many different ways, like all contracts of purchase and sale are written. You know, some people might say that's unconditional offer. Some people might state that the other offer that comes in is no subjects.
But you can write that into the offer too. When you're writing a subject to sale offer, you can write in that it has to be a subject free offer in order to invoke the
Exactly.
clause. Yeah.
Yep.
That's getting cheeky.
I try to stay cheeky as possible, guys.
I think, can I summarize? Because that was confusing as shit. Sellers, I would be very open to working with subject to sales as long as you understand what they mean. Make sure your realtor explains to you the terms in them, because buyer's agents, like Lucas said, away from the mic, so you probably didn't hear.
Cheeky.
Yeah, there can be some very cheeky language in it. And so you just want to make sure that they're explained correctly so you understand what you're getting yourself into. I would say if you're a little bit overpriced, if you've been sitting on the market a little bit of time, be open to subject to sales, especially if they've got a decent product to sell. And that's what you're going to want to look into that too. But there is some language that can make it difficult to get out of that clause if you're not aware of it. So examples of that would be typically you invoke a 24, 48, or 72 hour clause to the buyer if you're in a subject to sale that will give them that amount of time to remove that subject, or you automatically move on to the next offer. I've seen people write in there 72 business hours, which only gives you 8 hours per day, which makes it actually almost like 9 days. But they'll also say business hours excluding weekends, excluding holidays, and only 8 hours a day. So it actually works out to like 11 or 12 days. Seriously, Carl. And then the other one that was mentioned was unconditional offer. So that means you have to get an offer that's subject free, or the buyers have to remove, like it really doesn't even make sense unless it's a subject free offer, which is super rare right now, which is unlikely going to happen. So just make sure, I'd say be open to working with subject to sales, but just make sure you understand the terms that are put into them. What types of properties are moving right now? Because it seems like everything is a little bit different. And are there cities or areas that have been less affected by the last 9 months? Let's say something is priced correctly.
I feel like right now, at this very moment, it's the lower end product. I don't mean like terrible
Lower end in
buildings,
terms of price
but I mean
point.
price point.
Yeah.
500,000 and below, even 400,000 and below, or 450,000 and below. That is getting so much attention because it's all the demographics if the building allows certain things like rentals and pets. But you have your downsizers, you have your newlyweds, your young families, your first-time home buyers. Everybody is zeroed in that 500,000 or below, and it is, if it's priced right, the right product, it's selling.
So specifically condos.
Specifically
strata
Mhm.
right now is
right
moving.
now strata
Yeah.
condos.
And I'm finding if it's above that price point, it's like totally move-in ready and nice. Like we are finding it's totally hot or cold there. Either most properties are going through the same process right now selling, but there are some that are moving very quickly and getting multiple offer interest. And I'm just finding that the ones I'm seeing that are just very well maintained. They show really well in photos, and they've had some work on them that puts them above other properties in their complex. But those are typically the ones that I'm seeing going pretty quick if they're above that price.
What's really difficult to sell right now?
Duplexes.
Why
Without-
specifically duplexes?
Without any hesitation, the reason duplexes.
Do you
All
have a duplex for sale?
No, not right now. Not right now. But duplexes are extremely hard to sell. Not just, a full duplex, because everybody loves multifamily, like I mentioned. But half duplexes are really hard to sell because what happens is they fall into an area of attached housing. And typically speaking, people are usually looking for either row homes, townhouses, or condos, which mean duplexes don't get that much love.
What if they're priced really well?
Doesn't matter. They're still taking
What?
a long time to sell. Duplexes in Burnaby, predominantly in Burnaby, are taking a long time to sell.
Anything else?
I think overpriced detached homes are really hard to
No,
sell.
no. Let's say something is priced correctly.
Okay.
What product is hard to move right now?
Well, priced correctly. Townhouses that are priced correctly, because there's a lot of them. And that's like
Before you go on with that, but is that specific to certain areas?
Mhm.
That's where I'm thinking is starting to go.
yeah.
Like,
Yes.
I understand what you're saying. Like there's a weird anomaly with townhouses because you go to specific areas of town where there's like 30.
Well, do you think
Those-
it's because the price points of strata has climbed so much in the last 2 years that they're pretty close to entry-level single-family homes?
they are. That's why there's townhouses that are between 7 to 8, sometimes even 900,000, depending on where you're at. Right now, nobody wants to spend 850,000 on a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom townhouse that's 3 floors when they think they might be able to get a detached house. And they are, in some cases, able to get a detached house for that price. So why wouldn't they, right? And they don't have to pay $400 a month in maintenance fees. They can get a dump and reno it. That's always kind of what they tell themselves. Oh, I can get a detached for under $1 million and we can reno it, or I can get a new move-in ready townhouse for $800,000. So I think it's townhouses. Townhouses are tough to sell right now.
From my perspective, I'm seeing like the lower quality types of products. So the busy street homes, the really generic condos that there's thousands of in every city, the old houses that need a ton of work, that need a couple $100K in renos, are really difficult to move right now.
Mm-hmm.
The move-in ready, the unique types, I think still have some level of unique factor that attracts people to them, and priced correctly, they're selling quickly. But the stuff that is, I call them C-level properties that have some major thing wrong with them, whether they're busy street or whatever I just mentioned, or there's 1,000 of them on the market, like a standard 2-bedroom 850 square foot condo in a city. I feel like those are tricky to move unless you're like super conservative on price points right now. Especially the land value stuff, Shawn, is I feel like builders are of ultra hesitance right now.
You have no idea there, Denny. It's funny. I was talking to a developer not too long ago. Builds tons of detached homes all across Vancouver. Now he started.
Is this single family?
Single family, yeah. And the duplexes that he made were $1.5 million they sat for months. He was sitting on millions of dollars worth of property. That's just not moving right now. So developers, instead of going for those 50-foot lots in Vancouver, where they could have gotten in $7 million before, they're not even looking at them now. They're looking at the 33-footers. They're looking for duplex lots. Like I mentioned before in the podcast almost like an hour ago, is everybody's looking for higher density. So that means he or she's going to be looking for, duplexes, fourplexes, places where they can do multifamily. Because right now, Vancouver's shortage for housing. I mean, for example, Surrey itself has almost a 0% vacancy rate.
Rents are crazy, and that's a whole nother topic. And that's why I met with someone today, actually, that bought new construction. So they are living in a condo. They bought something new that's completing in the summer. And so we met for an hour today, just game planning of what they were going to do, whether they're going to move into the new one, sell the old one, whatever, how to line that up, because when you're buying new construction, you don't really have a firm completion date. And I bring up the idea of completing on it if they financially can and renting it. And like, well, how's that even going to look? And so we're like running through some numbers, and they're like, well, that would put us in a better cash flow position than we thought. So just like, I think there's deals out there, to be honest. And I think there's a lot of deals where you can be fairly cash flow neutral, which is what you're wanting to be, obviously, on an investment property. But I just think people are very close-minded on thinking very transaction specific rather than big picture specific. So I think there's a lot of deals out there for people who maybe have some equity built up that could take it out and buy a second property, rent it out as cash flow neutral, or like these guys stressing over the idea of the move, the idea of completing and spending an extra $1,000, et cetera, or if, as an example, on mortgage payments a month, but just having the idea in the back of your head, oh, what about if I use this as an investment property? I think there's a lot of deals out there for that. Okay, let's talk about predictions. Everyone get your crystal ball out. I know you've all got one because you're a realtor and you know exactly what's going to happen in the next year. What's going to happen in the next... No, I'm just kidding. What do you see the spring's going to be?
I'm not making eye contact with Denny, so he doesn't make me. He keeps looking at me.
Monica, what is the spring going to bring us?
I won't. Pass.
Pass? Why should you pass?
All right.
Pass,
Okay,
pass,
I think
pass.
it's going to be busy. I think
Why?
what I'm seeing right now, within week after week after week, every open house that I've been having, that's gone from, let's say, beginning of February to like 2 to 3 groups coming through an open house to now 17 groups coming through. There's a ton of buyers out there. It's just they haven't had the chance or thought process or the right realtor, I don't know what it is, to pull the trigger. And that's going to all happen as soon as spring hits. Sun comes out, stops snowing.
I think it's pretty solid. I've done a lot of open houses in January and February, and they were busy, especially in a listing that took me a little bit long to sell now, but it's gone now. But there was a lot of people there every weekend, and every Monday I'd be sitting by my computer like, yeah, today's the day I'm getting offers. Because in the past, when that many buyers had come through, you were seeing an offer on Monday. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if they're out there and they're pre-approved and they're looking, then yeah, it could be busy. But yeah, it depends on what their motivation is. Are they going to buy this year? I don't know.
What about on the financing side?
Maybe tell me. I feel like you have some information.
Some insider information. No, I'm just kidding. It seems like rates are coming down. A couple big banks have announced interest rate drops, for lack of a better word. And talking to a few mortgage brokers recently, it seems like there is going to be more of that coming in the next month or two. Even talking about speculation tax, mortgage brokers seem to think that it's either coming down or maybe even, sorry, not speculation tax, stress test. Stress test may, there's no guarantee of this obviously, but maybe eliminated, may come down to half of what it is now. So it seems like the local governments are seeing that the market has slowed significantly, and that wasn't really necessarily their goal. It was more just to slow it down a little bit, and they're trying to counteract now. And so I agree. I think the next few months are going to be pretty active. I don't know when it's going to start. It feels like every week is busier than the last right now in terms of number of phone calls from people looking to sell and people coming through open houses. So I'm kind of excited about the next few months.
Have you heard from some of your mortgage brokers about, so there's some banks that don't use mortgage brokers, like specifically, we're not going to do this.
There's not many.
Well, just let's
RBC.
throw this out. HSBC.
And RBC, yeah.
Yeah. So they're coming in with super low rates that even mortgage brokers can't match. I found that out today.
It's not that mortgage brokers can't match them.
Not
it's
the
that
mortgage
the other
brokers,
lenders
the
haven't
other
matched them
yeah.
yet.
And so are they holding tight to their numbers, almost like, I don't believe that that's possible, or what's going to happen?
Well, no, that's what the mortgage brokers are saying, is that in talking with other lenders, the lenders that use brokers, is that there's going to be a bit of a rate war this spring.
Yeah. It's happening now.
Well, yeah, RBC announced the drops, I don't know, a week ago maybe, and it seems like it's just starting. The stress test is going to be the big thing, though. If that goes away, or if it gets cut in half, goes from being qualified at 5.4 to 4.4, it's a big difference in terms of what people can buy.
Mm-hmm.
What about the next year?
Gee.
Well, the stress test is going to be a big indicator of how it will be, because in real estate, it's a trickle up effect, not a trickle down effect. I'm finding that if the condos are selling fast, that means people are upsizing into townhouses. And if the townhouses are selling fast, that means they're upsizing into detached. Nobody goes straight into buying an over $1 million detached. So it's the people that are buying these condos that are affected, and it's trickle up, right? So that could be blowing the market wide open if that really does happen, if the stress test changes. And if it does, then yeah, there's no reason. I mean, people still need to buy their first home. People still need to upsize to that 2-bedroom instead of 1. I mean, the world and the social aspects of needing to buy homes hasn't changed. Just the money has, right? So
Prediction?
I don't like to predict. To tell you the truth, I don't like
Educated
to
guess.
that's why I said pass. So you can say pass. It worked for me earlier.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're gonna do an educated guess, then it's different than predicting. But I think no matter what, real estate is a long-term vision, and if you're realistic with that, then it's always gonna grow. If you're trying to make a short buck, as they would call it, it's not in this market right now, and I don't see it within the next year unless you're being kind of what like Shawn's saying, you go in as a developer and you can buy something super low, and then maybe you can make some dollars off of that. But even those clients of mine are struggling.
Are you afraid to be wrong?
I'm never afraid to be wrong. I'm just
give me something then.
What do you want?
I want a prediction.
In a year from now, what's going to happen?
No, give me your idea of what the next 12 months is going to look like.
You just said you had all these buyers and you thought it was going to get busy.
Well,
you just said that.
We're talking about a year from now. Right?
Well, you can say what you think for the next 3 to 4 months this spring.
I think in the next 3 months,
the fall
it's going to get
look like
super busy for buyers, and they're going to have a hard time buying at a value that they want, and they're going to have to pay more. Sellers are going to be making more, but then when fall rolls around again, we're going to be back into the same situation where it's going to kind of die off again, and you have to be realistic with your values. But it really kind of comes down to what your motivation is. And I think that's the ultimate root of what's going on here right now in real estate. What is your motivation as a buyer or as a seller? That's where it all comes down to. It's not just like 2016 where it's like, oh, I'm just going to buy this and then in 3 months from now I'm going to make 100,000. It's not quite like buying Bitcoin. It's like buying Boeing's stock right now is probably a great time because in the last day it's gone down $25 billion. So right now I'd buy.
Shawn, what are your prediction for duplexes specific? I want to hear what are duplexes going to do?
For all the listeners out
I'm
there.
a listener. I have a duplex to sell. What should I expect?
That's a really good question. Holy smoke.
Burnaby specific duplex. According,
Can we dial that in?
to your
Can we dial that
previous
into
statement,
Can we
They are
dial
the
it into
hardest
East
thing.
Burnaby? Like
East
Burnaby's a little
Burnaby.
too specific.
East Burnaby
Burnaby's-
duplex.
if your address is this, yeah.
Here's what I think. I think Burnaby duplexes are probably the slowest moving inventory on the market. And But I think they're also the slowest to, I guess, move to the market conditions. So I think if the market takes off and condos, townhouses, and all that stuff starts to go up, same with single family, I think then duplexes will become a viable choice for people. But I think right now the prices of duplexes are almost the exact same prices as single family homes. I mean, for example, there's a house on 13th Avenue just off of First Street in Burnaby that's listed for $1,049,000. Fantastic price for a house, a single family house that's 2 doors down from, a private school, John Knox. So I mean, if you have a duplex that's listed for 1.5 million, or you can buy a single family for $1,050,000, then people are going to go for the single families. I think duplexes need to cut their prices in order to make them a viable option for people. Because I mean, with a single family home, you can have 3 bedrooms upstairs and a 2-bedroom suite downstairs. Whereas in a duplex, you might have only 3 bedrooms in total. So you don't have an option for a rental suite. So in terms of predictions for duplexes, I think they'll most likely come down in price based on where the market is heading right now. If I were to look at my crystal ball, I think we can't just look at the stress tests alone. I think it's a testament for seeing how outside influences real estate markets. I mean, you see the political side that affects the markets. You see the economics that affects the markets. I mean, if they're providing incentives for people to build homes, that's fantastic with suites and laneway houses. Then we'll probably start to see the developers get a little bit more active, which means they'll buy houses, which means people will either downsize, move, or do lateral shifts, right? Which also means construction people will be a bit more busy, which means they'll be paying local businesses, which means we're going to be getting the ball rolling again. So prediction for the future, if the stress tests start to, lighten up a bit, that's fantastic. I think we'll start to see a shift in the market. I think it'll be slow. I think it might take 3 to 6 months because people will start to wonder, what the heck's happening? What's the inventory that's out there? We may not have the right type of inventory for the people who are looking at buying. So long of a short, I think it'll get busier.
That was pretty long, actually. No, I'm just kidding. Do you guys care what I have to say? No? Okay, we'll wrap up. I see the next 3 months as being really active. I see listings turning over a lot quicker. I don't necessarily see a big jump in prices, maybe a small 0 to 5% type of increase in the next few months. I think every year that I've been in real estate, the spring has always been the most active time. Last year was a bit of an anomaly, being like an early spring peak in April kind of thing, but May, June started the decline. But I think that was due to stress test stuff and mortgage rates. I see a busy next 3 months. I see a teeter off in the summer and then a pretty slow fall. I think fall 2019 is going to be very similar to fall 2018 in that stuff will turn over, but it's like 30 to 45 days on market. If you're priced correctly, you'll get people through the door, but it's not going to be like 15 groups through an open house. It's going to be 3, 4, 5. And I think it's going to be like a couple years, 2 or 3 years before we see another big run in Greater Vancouver real estate. And that is assuming that legislation doesn't come out with any fucking crazy speculation tax ideas again. And assuming that interest rates remain relatively stable. If interest rates go up another 1.5%, obviously that's going to hurt real estate market. That's my little spiel. That's what I'm sticking with. I'm okay to be wrong, but I think I'm going to be right. Lucas is looking at me like he wants to say something.
I missed this whole conversation, but I agree.
Just the faith in the team. Anything you want to end with something?
Adam and I are going to be doing.
I thought it was just going to be more duplex talk.
I just wanted to add, sorry, I have to do a shameless plug here, Denny.
Well, let's start it with this. We want to help people. We want to provide information. And so we're trying to figure out the right ways to do that, whether it's podcasts, whether it's videos on our social media, whether it is in-person seminars. So we're trying to do a little bit more in terms of being involved in the community and putting ourselves out there so that we are, I don't know what the right word is.
A great resource for your real estate needs.
We want to be a resource for real estate needs.
That's what it says on his flyer.
Yeah. If you have a fucking duplex in Burnaby, you need to call this guy because he knows more about duplexes than anyone else in Greater Vancouver. Okay, go ahead. Plug
Adam that was a fantastic start to this. Adam and I are going to be doing a buyer and seller seminar, and it's going to be happening on April 4th. And it's going to give a lot of information, and it's going to answer a lot of questions. Some people have had questions about, should I renovate my home before I sell it? Is right now a good time to buy? Is right now a good time to sell? What do I need to do in order to buy and or sell? What should I do first? What should I do later? And I think Adam and I are pretty prepared for your question. So we'll be plugging it for the next few weeks, and we hope to see you out there.
What are your marketing videos going to look like?
Stay tuned and find out. got a couple ideas. I like one. Shawn came up with a good idea today. It's in line with your
You're not going to share it? No, I know. I heard you.
Oh,
I
yeah.
heard
You sure? Yeah, okay. It's a take off of comedians in cars getting coffee. I'll leave it at that.
I love that show.
Yeah, it's a
Will
great
you or will you not be playing music?
I likely will not, but I'm not promising.
If you would like to hear Adam play music, comment and we will make sure he plays music. Guys, we want to be your resource for everything real estate. I would love to start doing these little group sessions more often, and I'm sure they're going to happen more often. And we will update you in a month and a half when my prediction comes true and the spring is crazy. That is all. Later, guys. Have a good evening.
See ya.
Bye. Miss you already.